So is he from the moon or just like serves the moon?
Neither, man. Why don't you just watch it?
I'm not going to watch it. No.
Oh, man. Fuck. Damn it. Heath, why did I let you talk me into this?
What? No, this was all your idea.
Guys, what's the freak out now?
Oh, Cecil, Tom, thank goodness you guys are here. So, you know how this week's episode is about the Sash murder?
Yeah, sure. What about it?
Yeah, well, Eli and I got to thinking about how much we could really use Noah's insurance money. And before you know it, boom, we murdered him.
Dude, you murdered Noah for some insurance money? That's fucking cold, man.
Well, we regret it now. It actually turns out that neither of us is particularly good at podcasting.
Could have told you that.
Did you guys know that he does a diatribe like every week? Like, who thinks of something to say once a week? Like an entire thing, to like an essay.
Okay, yeah. Also,
week.
Not to mention, you guys did a murder.
Yeah, like a whole
so
murder.
you should think about that.
Well, I certainly hope you learned your lesson.
It's Noah. What?
You're alive.
Hey.
Yep.
Buddy.
Yeah, see, you guys accidentally planned your murder on the Facebook thread that I was on, so I put that doll from the sixth day that Eli bought to prank Thomas in my bed instead of me.
Simpal Cindy?
Simpal Cindy, that's right. And moving forward, I hope you guys have learned that it doesn't...
Noah, Simpal Cindy costs like $6,000.
So expensive. Also, how are we going to prank Thomas Smith now?
Well, I mean, the point here is not...
Oh, man, just when I thought this day couldn't get any worse.
Okay, what is a Simpal, Cindy?
Do not ask that, Tom.
Yeah, it is best not to ask, bro.
Expensive, that's what she is.
So expensive. Worth it.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Cecil, I'll be running this investigation, but I'll need my team of detectives. First up, two crack sleuths, Eli and Noah.
It's true. I can find crack in pretty much any public park after 4 a.m.
Well, and that's true whether you're talking about the drug or not, actually.
It's true.
Also joining us tonight, two private dicks, Heath and Tom.
Okay, I'm a grower, not a shower, Cecil. You know this.
All right, it's a lot more private a dick than like Lauren Boebert's husband. I'm still allowed within 1,000 feet of a school zone. That's all I'm saying.
I guess that's true. Before we begin tonight, patrons, you are the dust to our fingerprints, the magnifying glass to our footprints, and the Dexter to our blood spatter analysis. I have no idea what that means, but if you'd like to learn how to join their ranks, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Noah, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
We're going with an event today. We're going to be talking about the Sash murder.
Oh, what was the Sash murder?
In 1927, Ruth Brown Snyder conspired with her lover, Henry Judd Gray, to murder her husband, Albert. And the crime caught the media's attention, and the couple's trial became the first of the 1900s many trials of the century. The national obsession with the murder inspired the 1943 James M. Cain novel Double Indemnity, which in turn inspired the 1944 film of the same name, which in turn inspired essentially the entire genre of film noir and has defined it ever after. So if you know the genre and not the crime, you'd kind of assume that this crime was calculated, complex, and presaged by a bunch of meetings in dank alleys type shit. But if you knew the crime and not the genre, you'd assume the genre was a buffoonish type of dark comedy. And of course, any story that revolves around both death and ineptitude is bound to wind up on this show eventually.
Once they make the death and ineptitude category on iTunes, we will be crushing it.
Yes. Or they could just rename the Christian podcast one and we'll be back at the top again. It's a win for everyone.
So Ruth and Albert Snyder were a pretty typical middle-class married couple for 1920s New York. He was the art editor at Motorboat Magazine.
Okay, great magazine, but all the articles are just...
It was actually about motorized watercraft, if you could believe that, Tom. I'd ask for my fucking money back.
Hey, you subscribe to what you subscribe to. I subscribe to what I subscribe to.
So he's the art editor. She... is a bored as all hell housewife. They met when she was a 19-year-old secretary at the magazine, and he was her 32-year-old boss. After dating for a few months, they married in 1915, and a few years later, they had a kid and moved to a big suburban house out in Queens. This was what every woman at the time was supposed to want, but Ruth fucking hated it.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was still like 2 years away from being able to buy enough box wine to wash down the pills. So
Sure.
Right, yeah. But this moved away from all our friends, away from the nightlife, and into what was at the time a pretty suburban area, well removed from all the parts of New York that made it worth living in.
You can't even smell the garbage from there. It's ridiculous.
You smell it, dude. You can't even see the peaks of the mounds from out there. Yeah,
Who are we kidding? You can smell the garbage in Queens.
You can smell it,
Come on,
but
you can smell the garbage in Queens.
peaks of the mounds.
Now, of course, this was not the only reason the marriage wasn't ideal. Albert was also still hung up on his first fiancée, a woman named Jessie Gouchard, who actually, I guess, died right before they were supposed to be getting married. And apparently Albert wasn't shy about his lingering infatuation. He hung a picture of Jessie and he and Ruth's first home and later named his boat after her.
Is it called?
Apparently, he was also fond of telling Ruth that Jessie was, quote, the finest woman I have ever met, end quote.
Okay, I feel like you're saying it's negative, but no, he's saying like, I'm saying you're the second finest woman I ever met. Doesn't sound like a compliment anymore. Like, fucking feminists, am I right? Second best. Fuck you.
Honey.
Get in your lane.
If you could, honey, if
in
you
the
could just wear this death mask of my ex while we're fucking. Oh, and now you're crying. Jesse wouldn't have cried. Jesse didn't cry.
Yeah, no, we're going hard on the he had it coming angle.
Yikes.
That's good, though, actually, honestly, in this case. So
Come on. You feel better?
So Albert and Ruth spent a decade in a loveless marriage that, according to their daughter, was filled with arguments and yelling. Mom wanted to go places and do shit. Dad wanted to stay home and tend his garden. Maybe it was, as the moralistic journalist of the time concluded, that Ruth was just an immoral, devilish woman unfit for proper domestication. And maybe it was, the 13-year age difference. But whatever it was, they weren't happy. So when, in 1925, she met a charming and dapper corset salesman by the name of Henry Judd Gray, they started what would ultimately become a 2-year affair.
It's like I always say, just because you're on a diet doesn't mean you can't cheat on your diet.
Both conspirators would ultimately go to their graves claiming that the other one was the mastermind. So we really don't know whose plan this was. But at some point, the two came up with the idea of offering Albert and divvying up the insurance money. In the months leading up to the deed, Ruth forged a double indemnity insurance policy in his name worth almost $100,000 in the case of accidental death. Now, that's 1927 money, so we're talking about like $1.5 million in today's money. And then they set out to plot their dastardly deed.
I think I'm starting to see why Noah keeps stalling on that Keyman insurance policy, everybody.
You damn right you do. So first of all, Gray figures he's going to need an alibi, so he makes up an excuse to go to Syracuse that weekend, then convinces a friend of his to stay in the hotel room that night. Apparently, he told his buddy he was sneaking off to have an affair and needed the hotel bed to look slept in the next day.
What the fuck kind of friend is like, oh, you're having an affair? Oh, yeah, of course I'll help with that. Yes.
This is 1927, Tom. So
Okay,
all of
all
them,
right, that's
all
fair.
the friends.
Good
So
friend,
Everybody's
Tom.
the great Gatsby. The whole thing is Gatsby stuff this whole time.
So then he sneaks back to the city, and by sneaks, I mean he took a fucking bus like an idiot that multiple people could later identify him from. Then he heads to the Snyder house and he waits.
Stands up. Hey, bus people, if you could just put your name and address on this sign-in sheet so I could tie up any loose ends after this murder I am committing tonight, that would be totally cool. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I actually have a sheet, too, for the same thing. Oh, okay, it looks like we all do, actually. That's cool. We'll just pass it around in like a circle. We all have a murder sign-up sheet thing.
Now, the plan is to make the whole thing look like a robbery. So you'd think maybe they'd break a window or kick in the door or something, and Judd would take away a few valuables. But that's because you gave this crime more thought by accident than these two idiots did on purpose. In fact, after they murdered Albert, the only clue they left as to the identity of these killers is a socialist newspaper that they placed conspicuously on the coffee table Because, you know, socialists are murderous thieves and they like to pause during their crimes to catch up on current events sometimes.
That wouldn't even work nowadays. How would you like leave signing them up for Joe Biden's e-newsletter on a coffee table? That doesn't even make any sense.
I was going to make a joke ripping on socialists too, but then you just called them Joe Biden supporters. So I feel like that's been covered, Cisa. They're mad.
That's confusing political
You know, fucking
message.
at least leave the paper somewhere plausible, like in the bathroom. It's like, all this moita is giving me the tummy rumbles, eh?
Hey, when you gotta shit, you gotta shit. Right, yeah. So the following morning, March 20th of 1927, Ruth calls the cops to report. I don't actually know if she called. Phones were pretty new then. But anyway, she reports to the police.
Cops!
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So she reports that her house has been burgled and her husband has been murdered. According to Ruth, two men that she described as giant Italians had broken into the house, knocked her out, tied her up, murdered her husband, and stolen her jewelry.
Giant socialist Italians. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They left
Giant
a trail
socialist
of
Italians.
grease and meatballs everywhere.
That's it. Until this joke gets stale, you're now Cecil Giant Italian.
Let's just get it all out, guys. Come on, let's just do this now.
All right, so right away, police are suspicious of her story, and not necessarily because the police were super smart or anything. Everything about her story raised their eyebrows, especially the parts where she kept offering up details of things that would have happened while she was supposedly unconscious.
Okay, the part where the giant Italian socialist plumber wearing red jumped on your head and then bopped your husband with a shell. You said bopped him with a shell. I guess that makes sense. You know, ethnically, but timeline-wise, it just doesn't end up. You would be unconscious at that point, and then you saw the shell thing?
So in addition to the out-of-body timeline, Ruth didn't have any visible wound, and it didn't look like she'd been knocked out or tied up, and she certainly wasn't tied up when they got there. There were no signs of forced entry. The value of the missing jewelry was way too low for the crime to make any sense. And also, the method of murder was fucking nuts. Okay, so apparently the murderer first tried to chloroform Albert by sticking chloroform-soaked swabs into his nostrils.
Up his nose?
But
Yeah.
but that just woke him up, right? At which point they tried to bash his skull in with a sash weight. It's a counterweight for drapes. Right, but since that weighs as much as, you know, drapes, it didn't fucking kill him. Ow. You might as well be hitting him with drapes. Ultimately, they ended up strangling the guy with the wire from the back of a picture frame. And while there's no typical method that murderous giant Italian socialist jewelry thieves use to kill people, this definitely was not the work of the stone cold professionals that Ruth was trying to blame it on.
Is this like a TikTok challenge? You can kill him, but you can't use anything outside of the room? Like, what the fuck? Like, the guy died like a fucking objective on Junkyard Wars, man.
Okay, see, so I am guessing they may have brought the chloroform.
Fair.
Because if not, they're into some weird bedroom shit. Just some really weird bedroom
Hold on
shit.
a second. You're railing on me because I'm Italian. Now you're railing on me because of the fucking chloroform.
Okay, so the chloroform in your nightstand didn't work. I'm going to shoot him with this gun. So, yeah, this will work. Okay, that's a foam dart with a suction cup on the end. You have a weird house, Ruth. It's like a Nerf house.
So no, I've oversold their intelligence, guys. I apologize. You've assumed that there was not a loaded gun in the bedside table this entire time.
Amazing.
Okay, so he grabbed for the orange dart gun instead of that one. And then he was like, is this a pillow anvil? Why do you have an anvil?
So the cops are unconvinced. They search the house and they're immediately rewarded with yet more evidence that Ruth is full of shit. They find the supposedly stolen jewelry under her fucking mattress.
Wow.
So not only did she hide it in the fucking house, but she didn't even hide it well. And just to make the cops' job easier, when they told her that the burglary was faked, she indignantly replied, quote, "What do you mean? How can you tell?" End quote.
Okay, just tell me the parts of the story you didn't believe, and I'll change those parts. Hey, why are you arresting me? Go.
All right, so now in addition to being stupid, Ruth and Judd were also unlucky. Because of Albert's terminal obsession with his deceased ex-fiancée, he had a pin with her initials on him at the time of his death. The police found that pin on the floor nearby, and they don't know anything at all about Jesse, so they decided to check those initials against Ruth's address book, and damned if they didn't match up with a fella by the name of Judd Gray.
What?
A fella who entirely by coincidence is her accomplice in the fucking murder.
That's the best.
So the cops come back to her and they say, so what about this Judd Gray? And with all the forethought and cunning that we've come to expect from Ruth, she answers back, why has he confessed?
At church, I mean, staunch Catholic, I murdered my husband.
Stab you. Okay, that's foam. That's a foam sword. Damn it. I have a lot of weird stuff.
Rule number one of police interrogations is that the answer to has my accomplice confessed is always yes, right? So they say, yep, he sure did. He told us everything. You might as well just tell your side of the story now, at which point she admits that her and Gray killed the guy and there were never any giant socialist Italians.
Never? Cecil is right here, Noah. Rude. I see you, Cecil.
Outrageous.
So within a couple of hours, the cops arrest Gray in a hotel in Syracuse, and they can barely get him back to the city before he's confessed as well. Of course, while both of them admit involvement, they both point the finger at the other as the mastermind and the actual killer.
I don't want to seem sexist, but no woman is dumb enough for a nostril-based murder. My money is on Gray for this one. I'm sorry.
Now, I couldn't blame you if you thought that's the end of the story, right? I mean, the killers are in custody. They both confessed, damn near as open and shut a case as you can get without an eyewitness. But it turns out that the real story is just getting started, because if you think that the murder itself was a farce, just wait until I tell you about the media circus that surrounded the trial.
Well, with a lead up that fucked up, there's no way you're going anywhere. So just enjoy this little interlude we like to call Apropos of Nothing.
This summer, a classic of film noir returns to the big screen.
Hey, babe!
Yeah, babe?
You wanna fucking kill my fucking husband?
You know I fucking do, babe.
Well, that was fucking easy. I didn't expect that.
It was the perfect plan.
If we kill him, it's gotta be fucking worth it.
Well, let's off the life insurance so we can get a couple packs of menthols and some mid-shelf gin. What do you say?
That's why I fucking love you, babe. You think of everything. Let's make out.
Step inside the dark minds of two murderous masterminds. Wait, would we say mind and then mastermind in the same sentence? Wouldn't we want to change the noun to a
Just
different...
read the script, Tony. Nobody fucking listens to this shit anyway.
Fine, but it sounds weird. And also, you're demeaning my craft. You know, whatever. Step inside the dark minds of two murderous masterminds.
You gotta kill him with what's inside the fucking room! They're gonna fucking know you! We did it, you fucking asshole!
Look, this ain't no fucking Wordle on hard mode, babe. It just took a half an hour to kill this guy with the Craftmatic adjustable bed remote.
I'm actually not quite dead. When the batteries fell out of the remote, they fell out of the back. It lost a lot of mass, so I'm just in some pain right now, but I didn't get killed.
Stay the fuck out of this!
Sorry.
Marky Mark in Double Indemnity.
Just sign here, Mr. Wahlberg, and we'll add the indemnity clause.
Whoa, indemnity clause. Is that the fucking guy that gives you the insurance on Christmas? Don't tell him I beat up that Chinese guy.
Well, so far, we learned about the juicy Smollett of insurance fraud murder. What happens next, Noah?
All right, so to this point, you might be asking yourself, what makes this case exceptional, right? I mean, the assailants were exceptionally dumb, but stupidity and crime are pretty common bedfellows, and there have been plenty of sloppier attempts to cover up a murder in the past. Albert and Ruth Snyder weren't famous, they weren't important, the details of the crime weren't particularly gruesome by the standards of murder, and what's more, murdered my spouse for the insurance money is about the least inspired motive that you can ask for. So why does this killing merit our attention? Well, because the media fucking said so. See, in the early 20s, there was a press war between the three big New York tabloids, the Daily Graphic, the Daily News, and the Daily Mirror. So as soon as one of them covered the story, they each tried to one-up each other by adding ever more lurid and entirely made-up details to suck the public in. So before news broke of Gray and Snyder's confession, the papers had been making a fortune with a double homicide known as the Hall-Mills case. Hall was an Episcopal priest. Mills was a member of his choir that he was having an affair with. And though Hall's wife was initially charged alongside her brothers, they were ultimately acquitted, and the actual killer remains a mystery. According to an uncited claim on Wikipedia, i.e. our bread and butter, the case set a record for the most coverage any story had ever earned in the American press. But even that media feeding frenzy had to end eventually, and when it did, the New York press was looking for a rebound murder. Gray and Snyder just happened to be the murderers that showed up on cue. Of course, what made the Hall-Mills case so interesting was the air of mystery, right? There were at least 4 prominent suspects, and the newspaper had so much fun speculating on the guilty party that at least some of them had to settle a few defamation cases before it was all over. But with the Sashwaite murders, there's no mystery. Right? Well, not any significant one. Both of the murderers confessed pretty much right away. And yes, there were and still are some questions about whose plan it was, who actually killed Albert, et cetera, et cetera. But everybody knew in advance who the guilty parties were. So faced with a boringly ordinary murder to cover, the media basically made the ordinariness of it into the story.
Really? Like, it makes too much sense.
Well, no.
That's American epistemology right there.
Yeah, honestly.
Makes too much sense.
No, but their angle was basically, hey, look, if Ruth and Arnold are just like ordinary, boring people like your neighbors, maybe your neighbors are murderers.
Ooh.
Okay.
You think that's shocking? Wait till you find out how many of your neighbors supported an insurrection.
All of mine.
Too many. It's too many.
So now there are 2 stories as to what happened here, right? According to Judd's account, which he freely shared with the tabloids at every available opportunity, he was a sucker that got seduced by a coquettish temptress and succumbed to her villainy. He admits that, yes, he struck the first blow with the Sashwaite, but said that he thought better of it and couldn't go through with it. And then yelled, again, this is his own account, quote, "Help me, Momsy." At which point Ruth came in, grabbed the picture wire frame, and finished the job.
Momsy is his
There's like a pet
friend.
name for
sexual
Ruth.
partner
Yes,
is
Momsy.
Momsy.
Okay.
Heath doesn't understand that at all, everybody. Heath has no idea what you're talking about. Heath needs clarification. Why would
You're not even doing the fake thing right. It's not that I like it. We're not getting into it.
So
it's incest. No, go ahead, Noah.
Will do. So way ahead of you. So that's Judd's account.
Sister, brother.
According to Ruth's account, she was seduced by a man whose literal job was tempting women, and then he started blackmailing her and threatened to tell her husband about the affair if she didn't pay him a ransom of cash and bootleg liquor. Now, yes, she forged Albert's signature on the insurance policy, but she claimed that she only went along with that plan because she thought she could talk Judd out of killing Albert before he actually went through with it.
Oh, this is like the tabloid version of when the guy with the Monster Energy hat marries the girl who pierced her baby's ears from your hometown.
Yep, sure is. Sure the fuck is. So, faced with these 2 competing and equally improbable accounts, the press decided to believe Judd entirely and uncritically. Press accounts at the time overflowed with sympathy for the poor, bespectacled 5'5" patsy beguiled by Ruth's irresistible charms. The detectives that arrested him told reporters that he was, quote, as nice appearing a gentleman as you'd want to meet, end quote. The New York Herald Tribune pointed out that, quote, he was a Red Cross worker in the World War, was an assiduous worker for the Sunday school of the First Methodist Church, was quiet-mannered in the home, and a local country club man, end quote.
That's mostly negative.
But yeah, really.
Most of that's negative.
Yeah. Even the district attorney who was summarizing the state's case against him called the dude a, quote, decent, red-blooded, upstanding American citizen, end quote.
He wouldn't hurt a fly. Mainly because he was using a Sashwaite, and that's a really impractical thing to swat flies with.
Also a real impractical thing to kill guys with, it turns out. But yeah.
Fucking gave up on it.
I mean, to that point, just to paint a picture, you've got a short, skinny dude smacking you in the head with a small paperweight while your wife is taking the Thomas Kincaid apart so she can like jump on your back and strangle you
eventually.
Yeah. Like if these idiots manage to kill you, that's at least half a suicide.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, stop throwing beanbags at me. That it kind of hurts. And no, What? I don't want to start smoking today. What are you talking about? Is she weaving a rope? What's happening right now?
So, needless to say, press accounts of Ruth Snyder were somewhat less flattering. And it's actually interesting, if you go back and look at the press accounts of the time, which, to be clear, I haven't done, you can see this slow transformation of Ruth from a plain Jane housewife to a beautiful femme fatale, and eventually to an inhuman monster who looks more like a beast than a lady.
Like a Kardashian. I get it.
Oh, yeah, no, I guess there's a modern parallel, isn't there? Eventually, William Randolph Hearst's paper, The Mirror, brings in noted phrenologist Dr.
Yes.
Edgar C. Beale, right? The whole reason I did this essay was so that I could quote this guy. He examines 3 photographs of Snyder and declares that her flattened eyelids, which he compared to those of Brigham Young, were markers of a, quote, polygamous disposition, end quote.
What?
Yeah, he also said her tapered chin suggested treachery. Her mouth was, quote, as cold, hard, and unsympathetic as a crack in a dried lemon, end quote. And that her entire face was indicative of a, quote, shallow-brained pleasure seeker, accustomed to unlimited self-indulgence, which at last ends in an orgy of murderous passion and lust, seemingly without a parallel in the criminal history of modern times, end quote.
That's good stuff.
Apparently, Beale's phrenological cred was so exemplary that pretty much every paper in the country from that point treated that profile as an established fucking fact.
Yeah, and here I was thinking Heath came up with that Tinder bio all by himself. Shame on you, sir. Shame.
You're not swiping right on that. Come on.
Honestly,
Come on. The chin, a treacherous chin that's tapered.
Honestly, these
Okay.
orgies of murder really just distract from the self-indulgence. There's never been a time I've had the option for like sex and steak and been like, nah, I'm going to kill someone with a laundry basket or whatever.
Speak for yourself. So when the trial began, it was a predictable circus. Every day of the trial, 1,500 people would pack into an overstuffed courtroom with another 2,000 mobbing the streets outside. According to an article I saw on history.com, hawkers were selling fake tickets for $50 a pop, and vendors were selling stick pins with little tiny sash weights for 10 cents each.
Hey, based on the crucifix, you never know when a murder weapon is going to catch on.
No, that's fair.
That's just smart thinking.
No, that's fair. Now, we don't know who did what, but it would be careless not to highlight the extent to which the era's sexism doomed Ruth Snyder from the beginning. So keep in mind that the only evidence she was involved in the actual murder was Gray's word, all right, the word of the other murderer. Yes, she forged the insurance documents, and yes, she lied to police afterwards, but those are not the same offense as strangling a dude with a wire. But once it was established that Snyder was an adulterous woman, nobody cared about those little minor frivolous details. While Judd was allowed to expound at length from the witness stand to the all-male jury, by the way, the judge repeatedly admonished Ruth whenever she elaborated beyond yes and no. And to underscore just how institutionalized the misogyny was, I should point out that even though both Ruth and Judd were married to other people, he was only tried for murder. She was tried for both murder and adultery.
Wow. Hard to do that crime solo. I'm impressed.
Right? Yeah. Now, after an hour and 40 minutes of jury deliberation, both defendants were found guilty and sentenced to death by electrocution. Unlike the modern day where death row inmates are tortured with their impending death for years while we dangle glimmers of hope in front of them, the state of New York got to killing Ruth and Judd pretty damn quick. The trial ended on May 9th of 1927, all of 50 days after the murder itself, and the two were put to death on the same night in January of 1928.
Jesus.
Of course, the media circus...
Same day?
Yeah, both of them died. They died back to back.
They're just rolling guillotines into the courtroom. We'll see what happens. It's fine.
No, I'm sorry. The two of them were murdered the same. Were killed the same day as each other, not the same day they were sentenced. Of course, the media circus and its attendant misogyny followed them all the way to the electric chair. Press reports of the execution described Ruth as a disheveled wreck and commented on how unkempt her hair was. What? Whereas Judd, yeah, you want to make your hair look nice for these things. Whereas Judd was, this is a quote from the New York Sun here about Judd, quote, going to his death with a controlled spirit, he crossed the threshold without the need of a supporting hand. His step was firm and assured. He walked upright with his shoulders thrown back slightly. There was no weakening of the knees, no trembling of the lips. End quote.
Okay, that is some major shade they are throwing at the hair situation. Because,
Yeah. That
I
seemed
don't know. Like if I'm ever barbarously murdered by goons of the state after being summarily convicted of a crime with no opportunity for appeal, like I'm at least running a comb through my hair. I'm just going to run a comb through my hair.
Take some
Hey,
pride.
Ruth, you should really smile a little bit maybe right now. That'd be great. Maybe put on a little makeup. You're making our execution look bad. Like, really bad.
Yeah.
Fucking feminists, am I right? Gross.
So the execution was witnessed by 30 reporters, doctors, and prison officials. Again, all men, of course. And there was a rule against bringing cameras into the viewing area. But one enterprising photographer from the Chicago Tribune managed to smuggle one in strapped to his leg. When the switch was thrown, he lifted his pant leg and snapped a couple of quick shots, one of which ran on the front page of pretty much every newspaper in the country the following day. So, yeah, as morbid as it is, you can actually see a photo of Ruth Snyder mid-dying.
Yikes.
Right?
All right. If you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, what would it be, Noah?
Even the staunchest opponents of women's equality seemed to be okay with it when it came time to execute one of them.
Oh, God.
Are you ready for the quiz?
I guess. Why not?
All right, Noah. So when the super racist white people decided to plant the socialist newspaper as evidence to frame some made-up battalion guys, what were the other options they brainstormed and then cut and went with the socialist newspaper? A handful of loose spaghetti. B, a trail of chocolate gold coins. More Jewish killers. Or C, a really big heel bone that probably fell out when the black people were doing the murder.
Oh, it's got to be C. It's obviously C.
That is correct.
All right, Noah. Door-to-door corset sales. It's a pretty good gig, but it is a tough job to get. Why? A, it's an incredibly tight job market. B, everyone is so straight-laced. C, you're always getting squeezed for better results.
Squeeze.
I'm gonna go with A, the incredibly tight job market.
Actually, Cecil was right with the answer. Secret answer D.
All right. Well, he answered before I had a chance, so I get credit for his answer.
All right, Noah. Through a modern lens, it seems pretty certain that this is actually the story of a woman sacrificed on the altar of sexism for daring to be murder adjacent, but it's far from the least fair thing we've done to the fairer sex. What's far worse? A, the invention of thong underwear in 1974.
That's pretty bad.
B, not electing Hillary Clinton in 2016.
It's B.
Or C, people tweeting mean things to J.K. Rowling.
C is good too.
Oh, I'm tempted to. I think it's D, the fact that you just called them the fairer sex, even though it's not 1954 anymore.
Wrong. I win.
Unfortunately, because of the format of the show, Eli wins.
Oh, damn it.
Thank you. Cecil rules. That was an excellent turn of phrase. I would like to dive deep into Heath's psyche by accident next week, so I want an essay by him.
All right.
It's happening on purpose, buddy. You asked
All
for
right.
it.
Well, for Heath, Noah, Tom, and Eli, I'm Cecil. Thanking you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week. And by then, Heath will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can listen
Warming
to
up
Eli,
my psyche. Here we go.
Heath, and Noah on their other shows, Scathing Atheist, God Awful Movies, Skeptocrat, and D&D Minus. Or you can listen to Tom and I on our other show, Cognitive Dissonance. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. If you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
And I said to him, like, look, I don't want to do any, no, I don't want to do
she
no
fucking
more. There's
did
no
too.
more. Oh, stop fucking interrupting me, you fucking fuck.
Oh, fuck you.
Fuck you, you fuck.
Really, really glad we're electrocuting both of you.